Hey, what's up, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. So today I am very excited for this episode. Now, if you've been listening to previous episodes, you know that we are changing the structure of the podcast a little bit, and we are returning to primarily solo episodes, unless I feel such depth of truth and alignment with someone that I am really excited to have them on. And that is the truth for today. Today we have an incredible guest. Her name is Jenn Kennedy, and she is a guide to conscious leaders in the online space, helping them heal financially and create massively successful businesses and lead from authenticity. Now, Jenn and I connected at the beginning of this year where we both live here in Austin, Texas, because she reached out to me after my podcast went live on episode 2. So if you haven't listened to episode 2, that is about my story of what I went through over the last year. And she was like, dude, what is in the water? You and I just went through something so similar. And her and I both had incredibly profound initiatory years last year. And we both uncovered something similar that we saw inside of the coaching space that we didn't stand for. And we are both committed to operating differently as we lead and as we share our hearts with all of you. And that's what this episode is about. So a little bit about Jenn. She is incredible, and I could list out all of her accolades. She was originally a teacher turned into leader in the online space. She ended up scaling a huge business, multiple 7 figures, and then she ended up burning it all down in commitment to truth, integrity, and authenticity. And now she is building again, but from a place of depth and knowing and a place of integrity. And that's why I love her. Her and I have become deep soul sisters. She is somebody who I see just lead from the depth of her heart and soul and really wants the best for everyone on this planet. And I just see her leading from such an incredible place of truth and integrity, which is what I stand for on this show as well. And that is why I'm having her on the show today to speak to all of you. So we are going to dive into the things that we went through last year that were very similar, the things that we saw in the coaching industry that we are a stand for changing, and also how you can build your most abundant life from a place of authenticity and living in your own alignment with your integrity. So without further ado, let's dive into the episode.
And so there's this whole system of like, this person, AKA teacher, knows better than you. So sit still, do this, do that. And it just perpetuates throughout our entire life. And no fault of the teachers. Teachers are angels.
Yeah.
It's a system. That's part of the reason why I left, because I realized I was fighting a system every day of my life.
Wow.
If I really wanted to help ADHD boys and girls who really didn't struggle in school, they just struggled with self-worth, which then looked like they struggled at school. If I really wanted to help them, it can't be done inside the system until the system changes.
We're back, baby, with a brand new season of the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. Join us each week as we have unfiltered conversations about how to transform your life. Our mission is to usher in a new era of spirituality where you don't have to be all love and light to live a life of alignment. Here, we honor all of it, the profound and the profane, the magic and the messy, and all things that make you human. So let's discuss the truth behind transformation and be unapologetic in our evolution. From manifestation to money, embodiment to energy, and all taboo topics, nothing is going to be off limits. Are you ready to live a life that feels just as good as it looks? Let's get fucking spiritual. Just like tell me about you for a second. I'm gonna actually do an intro, but like you coach, you talk about money. How do I intro you?
This is
Do you
what
have any
happens.
accolades?
This is what happens. Do you have any accolades?
You have a million.
What have you done?
What have you done? Who are you?
Why are you here?
I just know you as this like badass, integrous, fun, witty, amazing human being, but you've also done some badass things in business too. So
That's all I am.
That's the intro.
That's the intro. I was once upon a time a teacher, wanted to become a principal, left, discovered a world of helping people, AKA coaching.
Great.
Discovered I was good at it, so I became a business coach. Hit the infamous 7 figures.
Yeah.
To realize that there was so much more to life than trying to hit an infamous 7 figures, and realized that, to live a really good life as a leader, it's to lead a mission that you're passionate about, and then also to live a life that's really good.
Yeah.
We sacrifice.
Wow, we're going to keep that in. We're going to keep that in because that was actually really good and so from the heart. So everybody welcome Jenn Kennedy to the show. This happened with Angie too, where I didn't do, like we just started talking and I'm like, wait,
the best way to do
we
it.
didn't actually like start an intro.
Yeah.
But you said it more eloquently and beautifully than I ever could. And this is why I wanted to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Because I feel so blessed to be able to call you a friend and a sister walking this path. And as our friendship continues to unfold, I'm just like, we are always in alignment on fucking everything.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it's so good. And so I'm just really excited to have you on the show today because my commitment to this podcast, to myself, and who I bring to my audience is that I want to feel that every single person that I have on the show is walking 100% in their truth, in integrity, leading from the heart and leading from a place of service. And that is what I love so much about you.
Thank you, love.
Yeah. So I'm excited to dive in today.
Me too.
Okay, great.
I love it.
Well, just tell us a little bit about like how you got into this work so they have a little bit more context about you and why this work matters to you. Because that's what I love about you is your answer to that.
So good. Well, how did I get here? I mean, you could agree with this, that it was never the plan, right?
Yeah.
Like I really think back like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and I would have never guessed, right? It used to be like, here is my plan in life, and this is my goal in life. And this was not it. Didn't even know this was an option.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went from teacher to principal to coach and grew a coaching business really, really quick.
Yeah.
You
were really successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really quickly. I hit the infamous 7 figures within 3 years of becoming a coach. And that was a wild, like I had it on my vision board. You know, you always have everything on your vision board.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd take like 10 years. It took 3. And I just kind of followed this desire to help people. I was a teacher. And so I always just wanted to help people. I never knew entrepreneurship was a thing.
Yeah.
I never knew that it was an option. And then, like I said, I hit 7 figures and was helping people make money. I was helping people grow their business, helping people have more reach. And I woke up one day and after a lot of other things transpired at that point in time in my life and just was like, there's something more to this. And I just, for a long time, sat there with that feeling of there's something more. And I felt it too when I was a teacher.
Yeah.
And I thought something more was becoming a principal. And then I thought it was being an entrepreneur, right? But I sat there and I was like, there's something more. And I just followed that deep feeling in my heart that there was something more and continued to let it unravel. And when you're deeply feeling, not like the ego chasing more, there's a difference, right? When you're deeply feeling that there's something more, you go down a path that you probably wouldn't have consciously signed up for. Right? You go down a path of healing and of unraveling and of disconnecting and detaching. And that was the path, only to lead me here and recognize that, when my like number one core belief right now is that when good people make good money, they do absolutely incredible things in the world. And I believe that we're here as coaches, mentors, guides, podcasters, whatever we want to call it. Like, what do you actually call yourself? God only knows, right? Like
It's different every day.
It's different every single day. But I really believe that when people who are doing work in integrity and within their heart and soul, like good work rooted in the light, that's when the collective in this world can actually really truly change for good.
Yeah.
And so, that's a tough mission when we live in a world where that's not the case.
Yeah.
But it's a mission that I'm willing to be on because I don't see another path.
What else is there to do? Once you see it, you can't unsee. And that's what we were just talking about. And I could take this in so many different directions because you bring so much magic to the world and the work that you do. And I love how much you stand for good money in the hands of good people does incredible things. And I want to dive into that. And I also want to dive into like the ego and the distortion and the things that we've uncovered and the difference between, the darkness and the light that we see in this industry. And you and I really bond over that as well. So we're going to touch on all of it for the listeners. But Yeah. Talk to me a little bit more about like, because I know you've been on a big journey over the last, especially year, and that's how we originally connected.
Yes, it
But
was how
you
we-
reached out to me like, okay,
wait.
you see it, I see it.
You're in it, I'm in it. Yeah, I see it, you see it.
Yeah.
Do you want to get lunch?
Yeah. So good. So good. So tell us a little bit, because obviously, I have, a lot of people listen to this podcast that aren't in the coaching world, and they listen for, all the spiritual teachings. But I also have a lot of people in my audience that are coaches or are aspiring coaches or, follow a lot of the coaches or in the different programs. And I would love to hear about your journey with that a little bit, because I want to bring light to the evolution that I've had and that you've had of almost like you have this like ego behind it, or like I'd love to hear your version and like you coming into now this light and like this place of service. Yeah, I would love to hear about your
I
journey
honestly
with it.
think whether you're in the coaching industry or aspiring to be a coach, or whether you're not, I actually think it's a very similar path, right? Because I'm grateful to have worked with leaders who are in corporate, realtors, right? I was in the education system, and so I really think that the coaching industry, or the self-help industry, whatever we want to call it, is a microcosm of the macrocosm of what we see in the world, right? So like whether you're listening and you're an inspiring entrepreneur, or you've been in the game for 10, 20 years, or you're like, you know what, I have no desire to, I just love Rachel and her spiritual work, I think that you can find yourself in this, right? Because I think all of us have found ourselves, and you and I have such a similar journey in this, we've found ourselves in a place where we were attached to a lot of things. Yeah. Whether it's money or fame or recognition, or whether it's the title, or whether it's the corner office in the tallest building in New York City, whatever it is, right? Like we put our identity in things outside of ourselves, and we attach to things outside of ourselves and thinking that they're going to give us something inside of us, right? And that is very much, I think, the self-help industry, right? Coaching or not, coaching is a part of that industry, is when I make this much money, or when I'm seen by these people, or when I have this many downloads, or when I have this many followers, or when I make this much money, then I'll feel blank. Yeah. And that was a huge part of the industry. Yeah. For a long time. And it worked. Yeah. People bought it. People bought into it. People invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars, right, into it, both of us, only to get to a place of what we could call a rock bottom of like, wait a second, something is not right. Yeah. Right? So whether it's corporate, whether it's a coaching industry, whether it's self-help, whatever it is, it's like, wait a second, something's not right. And that happened really in the last year as a collective. Right? We've seen it everywhere. Look at what's been happening on the news. Look at what's been happening within corporations, Hollywood, politics, right? It's like this, whoa, wait a second. The veils are lifted a little bit. They're thinning, and this isn't quite what it seems. And then what happens is we lose it. When you have an attachment, which is the ego, when you have an attachment to something outside of yourself, and then you realize this ain't it, and you realize it's not going to give you the thing, what happens? Welcome to the dark night of the soul, right? Yeah. Welcome.
Biggest ego death ever.
And I don't know about you, but I used to hear about dark night of the soul, and I thought it was one night. You know?
Literally, that's like the sweetest thing I've ever heard.
So naive in so many areas of life. I literally was like, I can do anything for one night. You know, like you get a 24-hour flu for one night, I'm fine. One night, whatever, dark night. Yeah. More like dark year. Yeah, like a dark year. But that's depression. That's anxiety. That's when all of this comes in, because my favorite definition of depression is Jim Carrey's work. I don't know if we've ever talked about this together, but we haven't. His definition of depression is when that avatar that was you created that avatar somehow, that avatar is just simply done playing the game. It's done. It can't play the game anymore. And what happens is you go into a season of deep rest, and it's depression. You're losing that identity, right? And so this is happening in the coaching industry all across the board, where it's like, wait, this isn't it. And what's the only thing that we have to come back to? What's the only thing that gives you relief?
Coming back home to yourself.
Coming back home to yourself. And God, source, universe, whatever, right, feels aligned with you. But that's also easier said than done. Yeah. Yeah. And especially when you've never felt safe with yourself, especially when you've never learned how to trust yourself, especially when you've never learned to love yourself. You know, so within that, I mean, that's the journey that so many people are on right now. It's a journey that you and I have gone on. And the darkness and the distortion happens with those egoic attachments.
Yeah.
And then you come out of it into the light. But it's a gnarly journey.
Yeah.
It's a gnarly,
So gnarly.
gnarly journey that people go through for whatever their attachments are.
Yeah. So how do you learn how to trust yourself?
Right? That's a question. That's $1 million question.
Still on the unfolding.
Right? If somebody could really solve that problem for everyone in the world, this world would be so beautiful.
Yeah.
How do you learn to trust yourself when the majority of people that you've put your trust into have betrayed you in some way, shape, or form? You know?
Yeah.
First off is I think healing all of the stories and everything that you or somebody else isn't trustworthy. You know, and recognizing that fortunately, it depends on what side of the coin you're on at this point in time in your journey, is that we do learn through contrast as humans.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's horrible when you're in it, but when you're on the other side, you realize that you couldn't learn that lesson. Like, can you really learn how to trust yourself and know what trust is, like with every cell of your being? Versus, would you ever learn that if you never were betrayed?
Yeah.
So a lot of it's healing the fact that we've very much been betrayed.
As a collective.
As a collective.
As a society.
Dude, 100% across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good. And I love that you made that distinction of it's not just happening in the coaching industry, but that's a microcosm of the macrocosm.
Dude, everywhere.
And I think what I was so excited to talk to you about today was how this is, happening in the world of like, we have this epidemic of giving away our power.
Yeah.
And not trusting ourselves and trusting someone outside of ourselves that seems that like they have more power, more fame, more money.
Sure.
And we're driven, and I say we as in this definitely was me. I don't want to speak for everyone here, but right, collectively, like, at least I unknowingly was driven by a wound of I am not enough and I will be worthy when I have followers, I have this. And I think that so many people get into this industry with a good heart, with a desire to teach, with a desire to save themselves. Like, right? Like, I could do this work because I need this work. And that's something that I always say here. And I never want anybody to forget that.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, and this can happen in any industry, any life path that you're on, it's like, there becomes this distortion of like, oh, but I could do this. Or what if I get a seat at the table over here? And then there becomes this outsourcing of power until you realize the rose-colored glasses lift.
Yeah.
And then you're left with nothing but you.
Yeah.
And I just love that you went on that journey as well. And like,
because at the end of the day, it's always just you.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you lay your head down every single night, it's just you. When you wake up first thing in the morning, it's just you. And when we all take our last breath on this earth, it's just going to be you.
Yeah.
You know, and we see it with people too of, you said like we have this epidemic of people giving their power away. Yeah. We see it everywhere. You know, like I've seen it with people outside of any industry in their marriages. You know, I've seen it, I was a teacher for 8 years. I saw it within the education system. You know, I am so grateful for my time as a teacher because I saw the deep coding and conditioning that happened to all of us at the age of 5 when we entered kindergarten.
Will you talk more about that?
Yeah. I mean, think about the way that our system is set up.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about public education here, but I also, private is not much different because it's an institution that is shaping you, how you be, how you act, what you believe, how you think, how you problem solve, how you come up against answers, how you do on tests, right? And then based on how you do all of these things, then either you have a really good opportunity, you can go to a really good college, which means you're going to have a really good career path and live a really good life, or you're not going to be that smart or have those options won't be available to you because you didn't do good in school, because you're not a good student, and then you're going to go on this path, right? The crazy thing about the education system is that the way that the education is set up right now, the system is set up right now, has not changed since inception. When we started standard education system back in the early 1900s, the purpose of it was to have a balanced society. Meaning we need factory workers, we need people to be CEOs. Like it was literally created for people to go into the upper class, the middle class, or the lower class. And yes, there's been initiatives massively since 2007 of like no child left behind and make sure that every kid has the same opportunity. But the reality is that they don't. When I was a teacher, 6 of my 8 years, I was an interventionist, meaning I worked with the bottom 10% of students in the school. And I was in a very affluent district, like one of the best districts in Michigan.
Yeah.
And you would have kids come in and you would try to bring them up to grade level, me pulling them out of the classroom. But the reality is that they're in a system. They're in a system that gets funding based on where the kids are at, based on the bottom 10, the test scores, the top 10. And so we're conditioned at the age of 5. I would watch kids come into kindergarten with this like light and playfulness, you know? And then literally by the end of the year, like they know how to be students.
Wow.
And Finland is actually one of the only countries that's doing it really well, because Finland actually doesn't allow children to even go into school until it's developmentally appropriate for them to.
So when would that be?
7 to 9.
Which makes sense because the subconscious is 0 to 7 when we know that. And you're like literally imprinting.
Like, you know, a 5-year-old, do you know any 5-year-old that can sit still for an hour?
Yeah.
No, it's not developmentally appropriate. It's not developmentally appropriate for a child to grab a book and sit still and listen and listen to the person at the front of the room, because they're the teacher. So you listen to authority. You just must listen to authority because they know better than you, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this whole system of like, this person, aka teacher, knows better than you. So sit still, do this, do that. And it just perpetuates throughout our entire life. And no fault of the teachers. Teachers are angels.
Yeah.
It's a system. That's part of the reason why I left, because I realized I was fighting a system every day of my life.
Wow.
If I really wanted to help ADHD boys and girls who really didn't struggle in school, they just struggled with self-worth, which then looked like they struggled at school. If I really wanted to help them, it can't be done inside the system until the system changes.
Yeah.
And that's the system that we all grew up in. It has not changed since inception.
Yeah, it's so insane.
So you think about what you said, we have an epidemic of giving our power away. For most of us, it's happened for how many decades now? Yeah. So of course we're mid-30s, mid-20s, mid-40s, whatever it is, and looking at people being like, make me feel powerful, because we've gone through systems our whole life.
Chills. Yeah, we literally got indoctrinated into giving our power away from such a young age.
And parents got indoctrinated into the fact of, well, you're at school. What are the, right? When you think about it, you spend more time throughout a day. You have to spend more time consciously awake in school than you do at your family. You get home at 4 o'clock and you're with your family from 4 to 8, and then you go to bed.
Yeah.
Right? There's more time being spent in the system.
Wow.
So what happens? We recreate the systems that we know.
Yeah.
So the self-help industry, right? Corporations, it really is just recreating the systems that we already know, because we feel safe in what we know.
Tell me more about that.
That we feel safe in what we know?
No, that how it's recreating now in the self-help industry, and how we can, I want to bridge that gap between what you saw then and what you see now.
For sure. Well, we just dove into the education system, right? And even think about graduating high school.
Yeah.
Right? It was like top of your class or here, whatever it was. We were always
ranking system.
Ranking systems, right? Always looking for something outside of ourselves, always looking for guidance and things outside of ourselves. And look at what we see in the coaching self-help industry. This person has all the answers.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the reality is when you are a leader, I mean, you and I both believe in this. Like, I believe that as a leader, you don't deserve to be a leader unless you're doing the actual inner work on a regular basis. I said to my husband the other day, I said, I wish that these like plant medicine, spiritual coaching spaces, I wish it was like you had to like have a therapist, like a really good therapist while you were going through it all.
Yeah.
You know, because it's one thing to be skilled here, but we got to be skilled here in the human sense, you know? But if you have leaders that aren't doing that, which is a lot.
Yeah.
I was shocked a lot. I've always had a therapist. I was really shocked to see that. And then you're not aware of these things, and what happens, you recreate them.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people that have been, a lot of really successful people that have recreated these types of hierarchies and these types of codependency.
Yeah.
Because why? It works. People are always, if you were a leader and you were teaching the person in front of you to come back home to themselves and connect to their divine connection and their spirituality and like their deep work and their mission in the world, well, then you wouldn't need to continuously pay the coach or the leader.
Right.
right? A lot of coaches and leaders want you to continuously pay them.
Yeah.
So they don't want that self-empowerment for you.
Yeah.
They'd be out of business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think so much of it is subconscious, even on the leader's part,
100%.
right? And like, I think they would think that I'm leading everybody back home to themselves, but the energetic that they're coming from
Right.
is the complete antithesis of that.
Oh, 100%.
And it's so interesting. And you and I have talked about this, and I'm such a stand for this on the show, and like really bringing light to this, that be so discerning on the spaces that you're in. Yeah. Be so discerning on who you follow, what you allow into your space and into your presence, because I know the intention of everyone listening to this is to get better, to grow, to heal, right? Yeah. But most of us, many of us have wounds and have wounding, right? And when we are integrated with that wound in our moments, even if we don't realize it, right, we have a tendency, there can be a tendency, and this was at least true for me, to pedestalize or to look at, oh, well, they must have the answers because they made all this money, or they must have the answers because they're so charismatic, or they're speaking all of this language. They say all the right things, right? Oh, I'm going to go, and
they're using words like abundance and self-love and self-respect.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And from the outside looking in, if you don't know, it all sounds great. And the teachings can actually be helpful if you apply it to your life. And there is still there's still so much light in this industry too. And within each individual is why I want to bring like presence to the fact that like, even if there's a lot of ego and distortion, like these people also have light that are leading. And just be so cognizant, because it's a slippery little way that it can get like sneak in, and be just so discerning with who you follow, because at the end of the day, you're not calibrating to what the leader says. You are calibrating to the frequency in which they're saying it.
It's so true.
And I'm just such a stand for that. I'm like, okay, I'm on my soapbox at the moment, but it's just like,
it's your podcast. You're allowed to be on your own soapbox. You do know that, right?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the permission on the show.
Your home, you know?
I really appreciate that. It's just so much. And I think you and I both uncovered that this year and came back into our own power and came back into like trusting ourselves and trusting our own knowing, and not outsourcing our wisdom of what should I do in my business, or what should I do in my life, and like what should I teach, or what's these things, right? And instead like coming back home to ourselves. And how has that informed how you show up now, how you desire to be as a leader, and what you teach?
I mean, it's everything. It's the foundation. You know, it really is. It's the complete foundation for everything. Because it's interesting. I think you and I had a really similar story here, where like most of my life I really did just beat to the tune of my own drum. You know, like most of my life I always felt like an outsider. I always felt like I just have a different path and I'm just going to take it, you know? Like I always trusted that. And then, you know, in my own attachments to money, and in my own attachments to success, and in my own wounding, right? Like that's, our wounding creates these attachments, and then we're like, I need this, you know, and going through a dynamic in my life and my business and in close relationship where it was very disempowering, right? And then coming out on the other side, it's like I recognized how I lost myself in that attachment. Right. And again, I think that this is common amongst so many people, right? I've got friends that like they were the brightest lights and joys, and they went to a really toxic relationship, and then they came out and they were like, whoa, what happened? Right. It's like, whoa, I didn't even realize I was putting that on the pedestal. Right? I didn't even realize that was there. And so in losing it for about a year of my life, right, and really living in misery after that, and during it, now it's like it has to be the foundation of everything. You know, like now it's coming back home to myself. And we were talking about this plans that we had a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I don't get FOMO anymore, right? Like I'm not getting FOMO. I'm not getting, you know, I should do this. I feel obligated, you know, because I used to be a people pleaser, and I used to want everyone to like me. And so it was very much, I felt like I needed to do these things. And so now being in this place of what feels good to me, what is the path of my most joy, what's the path of my most fulfillment, and what is my heart and my soul, and, you know, everything that I connect to outside of myself, in this season of my life is God and spirit, then what is that guiding me to, right? Because I really believe, and I think you do too, that we're all on our own paths.
Yeah.
Like every single one of us, whether we're meant to lead a massive podcast like this, whether you're meant to lead an Instagram page, whether you're meant to lead a blog, or whether you're just meant to lead in a corporation, or whether you're meant to lead a home, your household, we all have our own unique mission, our own unique path. And we have to be grounded in that every single day of our lives, or else we're living someone's life that's not ours, you know?
Yeah.
And so that connection guides me in everything that I do. Every conversation I have, right? It's like, where is this coming from? Is this coming from here, or what I heard, or is this really coming from my heart?
How do you discern that?
I think when you've been through it, you definitely can discern it. It's like apples and oranges, or black and white.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's felt.
For me, it's like I'm a very body person. It's heady versus in my heart.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Right? Like, it's like, am I trying to think of what to say, or am I trying to think of what to do, or do I feel what is right and what is true in this moment? And if I'm trying, that's head, that's ego.
Yeah.
And I love my ego. We have to love our egos. It's a part of us. But if it just kind of flows and comes out, that's what's meant to be.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Because I could just hear anybody listening to this say, but like, how do I know what's right? And how do I know what's true, right? And I used to always think that too, because I didn't have a trust in myself.
For sure.
Right? And I think once you get cracked open and brought to your knees enough times, but in a really big way, right? It's like there is no choice but to feel into and honor your own truth. And your truth will get louder and louder the farther away you get from it.
For sure.
And I think that was my experience
That is
too.
so true.
Yeah.
You will not have a choice but to pull back to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get to have the courage to follow it.
Yeah. Which is half the battle in and of itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to connect to it and be like, oh, whoa. Yeah. And you guys, you can play this game with little things. This is how I started. I would play this game with little things, right? Like with my husband, like I would be like, okay, he'd be like, what do you want for dinner? Right? And it would just be as simple as, what do I really want for dinner? But as I'm a woman, and men, I think you guys are like this too. I'm, married to one and learned a lot from them. But like, as humans, we're often not taught to speak what it is that we want. Yeah. Right? It's like, don't be selfish. Don't take up space, whatever it is. And so I would just play that with like having dinner, or what do you want to do this weekend? It's like, well, I know that I should clean the house, and I should do laundry, and I should catch up on this project, and I should call my mom, and I should do these things. It's like, no, but what do you actually like want to do?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I want to go explore. Well, you can't do that because it's 95 degrees in Texas right now. And blah, 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 right? And so you can start to play this game of just asking simple things.
Yeah.
What do I want to listen to right now? Do I think I need to listen to a podcast because I need to grow? And if I'm not growing when I'm driving in the car, then what are you even doing? It's wasting time. Or do I want to listen to some 90s jams and just like sing at the top of my lungs? You know? Do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a really good practice, because we often want that connection with the big important things in life. You can't trust yourself with like, should I move to a different country, if you can't trust yourself and I am going to actually just listen to what I want to do this weekend and not care what anyone else thinks.
That's so true.
Right? Like, start gaining the trust with yourself and the connection to your heart, teeny tiny moments throughout the day.
Yeah, trust builds in increments.
Has
and
to.
It's a practice, and it's a muscle. And it's a muscle of what I'm also hearing you say, and this is bringing up your intuition and noticing your intuition and noticing your desire. And I think so many people probably listening to this, because I hear this with some of my students, like, I don't even know what I want. I don't even know what I desire. I don't even, right? And because we're so taught to be in our head and what we should do and how we should think and what should happen, we are so disconnected and dissociated from what our body desires, what our body wants, what's a yes, what's a no. And I love that you are bringing that too, because it's like in little increments, so you can begin to build that trust muscle
for sure,
and then that will get louder, with time, and more clear with time.
And that's when you have that, you can't ever go wrong.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So true.
Like, when you have that, like, it's not right or wrong. It's what's true.
Yeah,
and that's it.
That's so true, because the way that I feel that I sit in the seat of my own spine after last year and my clarity, I don't know if you feel like that, but from completely. Just And from saying no to the things that are misaligned and saying yes to myself and choosing myself. Like there's something so magical that happens, anybody that's listening to this, when you choose yourself, even when it's the hard thing to do.
Yes.
And you say no to the thing that the crowd is doing if that doesn't feel aligned with you. Yeah. And you go a different direction.
Yes.
It's like there's no better way to build your trust in yourself besides listening to that voice.
It's so true. And the fact that it's even so hard to do, right? Because it's like, it's the hardest thing. It's so hard to develop. That just shows us the magnitude of conditioning that's around it and the magnitude of power that we've outsourced unwillingly, often, you know, that like you guys saying yes to yourself and connecting to yourself and your intuition and making those choices that's best for you, regardless of what anyone else in the world or anyone else around you, like that is all of our birthrights as humans.
Yeah.
Like we were born with this ability and then it just got clouded, very, very, very clouded. And so coming back home to that, yes, it's a difficult journey, but once you have it, there's no better feeling in the world.
Yeah.
Because you're a sovereign being. And then you know your path in life. And if you don't know it, you're going to discover it really quick. And then you fall in love with every aspect of it because you know that it's uniquely yours.
If you feel deeply connected to this episode, if you are ready to step into the expanded version of you, if you are ready to learn how to reparent your inner child and repattern the ways that you show up in the world, I'm so excited to officially announce and invite you to my upcoming in-person retreat in Austin, Texas, in August 22nd to 26th. There are 2 different style tickets with 2 very different price points. So I really tried to cater to everyone to make it accessible for you to come. Check it out in the show notes. We have a VIP that comes, stays in the house, has all meals included. We're all staying together. And then there's also an immersion style where you come to the location every single day. And I cannot wait to be in person with all of you to get to heal together. There's so much that you can do and collapse time when you are held in sisterhood for 3 to 4 days and allow yourself the space and time to really go into your inner wounding, go into your blocks, go into the things that are holding you back and learn to actually somatically repattern them in your nervous system. That is what we are going to be doing at this retreat, so that you can plug back into the true you of who you really are and leave as the expanded woman that you know that you were meant to be. And it's called the Expanded Women Retreat. I didn't say that. But anyway, if you are feeling called to join us, tickets officially went live. So go check that out in the show notes. And hopefully I will get to meet you and give you a huge hug in August. Oh, that's so good. And I want that for every single human, every single person listening to this.
It's our birthright as humans, you know?
And I can feel people listening to this right now and going, yeah, but how?
Right.
Yeah, but how? How would we be able to give them a little bit more tangible, other than like this, like, okay, choose where I want to go to dinner and things like that. What does it look like when, what does it look like when someone's outsourcing their power? How would they know? How do they know when it's time to bring it back home to themselves? Like, is it just that voice gets louder? Like, I almost want to try to give people tangibles, even though sometimes.
Well, the tangible is your emotions.
Yeah.
Right? Our emotions are the guidance system, point blank. Whatever you're feeling is a very good indicator if you're on path, if you're off path.
So true.
If you're aligned with yourself, if you're not aligned with yourself. Yeah. And this is difficult because as a society, we've really normalized misery. You know, like we really have. Yeah. Thank God that people are becoming open and outward and talking about mental health. But we've normalized not being happy and excited and in love with life because it is normal not to. It's normal not to be. I'm from the Midwest. It's normal to just wake up and go to your job and not really like it and then one day retire and then just, forgot to live. Yeah. Like it's normal to do that. You know, like it's crazy. And you know,
that's a soundbite right there.
It's normal.
Yeah, We've
normalized feeling apathetic. We've normalized not being excited. We've normalized not being in love with our days. We've normalized these things. And so we have to recognize that if we are truly aligned with whether you want to call it your soul or God, divine, like if your highest path, the emotions associated with that is happiness, joy, gratitude, appreciation, right? Like those are the emotions. If you feel that, you're right on path. Keep it up. Like crush it. Keep going and scream it from the rooftops and bring everyone along with you. But if you're feeling apathetic, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling uninspired, if you're feeling like, oh God, is this it? If you're feeling those feelings, it's a sign that you're off course. Right. So I think the first is creating massive self-awareness and understanding of like, why am I waking up anxious? Why am I attached to my phone 24/7? Why am I sad that she didn't text me back or whatever it is, right? It's just noticing these aspects of ourselves. And then from there, I love diving into that emotion.
Yeah.
I would love to hear what you and the somatic work that you've done, but like diving into that and really, this is courage. This is like the most courageous thing that we can do, is diving into that and just understanding, why am I feeling this way? I always ask myself, what am I attached to? Because it can allow me to see myself here, and that, wait, I'm attached to something here. It's like the I self right dichotomy. Like, I'm feeling that myself is attached to something, and so what is this?
Yeah.
I want to become more like my capital S self and less like my lowercase s self. Capital S being your highest self, right? Most aligned with source joy. And it's like, what am I attached to here? Because if I'm finding myself attached to something, then that's typically the thing that's keeping me off course.
I love that. Yeah. And the emotions is the guidance system. And I love the question about the attachment, because so what I would say to that, and it would go off of like, the attachment question is actually the gateway, right? It can reveal like so much. It's such a good question. Door. I've never asked myself that specific question. And I think that's so good. So asking like, what am I attached to? Why am I attached to this? What is this giving me? Right. And a lot of the work that I do in conjunction with the somatic work is parts work and internal family systems work. Good. And it's like essentially the part of you that's either giving your power away, the part of you that's self-sabotaging, the part of you that's scrolling out and numb on the phone, like completely dissociating, the part of you that's apathetic, like they're parts of you. They're not the whole of you, right? And that part of you is an adaptation because it is protecting you from not feeling a deeper emotion that hasn't been felt.
For sure.
Right? The part of you that feels sad, or the part of you that feels broken, unworthy, not enough. The part of you that you exiled, right? In IFS.
Yeah.
And what I always just like have such a curiosity, and what helps me is that realizing that I am not that part.
For sure.
When you are in it, you like think that is like how it is, and that life just sucks, or that this is just the way it is. You're blended with the part of you. For sure. Right? But when you can begin to be a curious witness, and that's how you talk about the big S self versus the I, right? Like the soul self, the true self, the higher self, whatever you want to call it, the adult true you, has the ability to actually witness with the non-attachment, just see with curiosity. Like, I'm noticing right now that I'm feeling really triggered by this thing. I'm noticing right now that I'm scrolling a lot. I'm not going to shame myself, because now you have another part that's coming out and bullying you. 100%. Right? And each part of us, like, so we all have all these different parts, and we have a tendency of where we go, right? So we have the part that bullies us, and then we have the part that just collapses and then we're on on social media. Yeah. And then we have the part that fawns and is the people pleaser. And we have the part, and so we all have these different parts that are adaptations.
For sure.
And each part has its own nervous system state.
And belief system.
And thought
and
process.
Intuition.
And everything. Like each thinks it's doing the best for you.
So meticulous.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. But when you see it, it's like, oh my.
When you know it.
When you know it. Yeah.
Yes.
When you know it. And the more that you can become the observer and see it with curiosity, and it is such a practice that I'm constant. Like I have times where I'm very blended with certain things.
For
like
sure.
you even saw me triggered about something, and I'm like,
I was like, I'll hold yourself.
It's so good. Yeah. Thank you, holding the vision. But sometimes we have to be in it, right? That's what our ego does. It keeps us safe. That is needed and necessary, and we don't want to eradicate those parts of us ourselves or shame them.
Yes.
But I think the more we can observe it, and then the more we can start to ask, like, with curiosity, like, what does this part need? What are you protecting me from? What are you afraid would happen if you didn't protect me like this?
100%.
Right? And then what you'll find is what's underneath. It's like usually when we're angry or we're fighting or we're pushing, what you're actually doing is you're keeping yourself from feeling the feelings that are underneath, which is like fear, and then sadness is typically underneath fear. Like and then grief can be underneath that. Like there's so many layers.
I find that whatever it's protecting you from is most likely in like the first two foundations of Maslow's hierarchy of needs: safety, security, belonging, love, acceptance.
Wow. I've never heard it said that way, but that's perfect. It's exactly right.
What does everyone want to do? We all want self-actualization.
Yeah.
We all want to become the best versions of ourselves and live the best life, right? Like that's what all of us want. It's like a plant. Well, not probably these ones,
not the fake ones behind me because I killed the real ones.
It's like the plant, right? The plant in any room is always going to find the sunlight, and it's always going to find the way. It's the coolest thing I do with my plants all the time. And I'm like, all right, rotate it here. And then it always turns back to where the window is, right? That's like us as organisms. We're always going to the light. We're always finding our highest path. We always want to figure, like, what is that purpose? What is that mission? Yeah. Why am I here? The joy, the expression, right? We all want self-actualization. Yeah. And those parts kick in because that's what we want. Mm-hmm. But look at those bottom two of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not safe. I'm gonna die, right? I don't belong here, right? It's love and connection. And so when you can get to the place where you recognize, like, I love that the way that you described that you can recognize this is just me wanting, I'm terrified because I think that she hates me and now I'm exiled out. Mm-hmm. And then you can just realize like, oh my God, baby girl, you're terrified that you're just going to be alone. Yeah. And then you have compassion. Yeah. And that's how we heal. Yeah. Right? Compassion's our greatest protector. It's our greatest healer. Mm-hmm. And when you see it like that, that's why I love IFS. Like when you see it like that, you have a framework that you're not so wrapped up into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see it. And you see it as these different parts that are trying to keep you safe. Yeah. And they're trying to keep the wounded inner child safe that didn't actually get to feel. Yes. Right. I love every single thing that you said because it's exactly spot on, and like bringing in the compassion, like being the compassionate witness, bringing in that love, which is essentially reparenting for sure the self, right? But what I also find in it, they don't hear taught in the typical like manifestation or like coaching like spaces, right? There's a lot of like the surface level, like get your vision board and like make the X amount of months and it's this like
play this music to get in really good vibrations. Yeah. Even though
it's like say your affirmations. Yeah. Do your mirror work. And it's a Band-Aid over a bullet hole. And that's why it's really shiny. It's the dangled carrot. It's the thing that you think is going to make you feel better, and that actually preys on the wound because, maybe if I get that, then I'll find the thing. But what you really need and what people are actually looking for, and what I know you stand for and what I'm such a stand for, is actual true healing. Yeah. Like I really am a stand for the collective healing, and for us, and first we have to heal on an individual level. Yeah. And that doesn't we can have the material things. We can have I love nice things. Like I love to be bougie. Yeah. My soul is like into the luxury. Okay. But it's when we're doing it from a place of, I need to fill a hole that's actually a bucket has an empty bottom that is just insatiable because we need the things. What we're actually searching for is to give our little wounded inner child the space to actually feel what she or he never got the chance to feel. Yeah. And it's like even bringing in the compassion. Yes, we bring in the compassion, but we actually get to allow the inner child to have the grief, to have the sadness, to have the fear, to have the pain. Yeah. And then we get to surrender to the feeling. And that's what somatic work has given me. So I'm going to be in this, and it feels terrifying because I think I'm never going to get out of it. But I witness that I'm just integrated with this part that thinks she'll never be able to get out of it. And it actually needs to be released out of the body.
That's so true.
Yeah. And then when we come in with the compassionate piece and repair, and it's kind of like a dance, like it's all kind of happening at one time. Like I try to, like my last program, I'm like, okay, we're going to do a 6-part steps, but like you guys are going to see that it's like actually all happening at once, but we'll get there. You'll see it at the end. It'll all come together. Yeah. But that's it, is that we actually need to have our pain in order to have our light.
It's the only thing. I mean, it's like the only way out is through. Mm-hmm. It's healing 101. Self-development is you can become any version of yourself when you just visualize it and become it. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it works is because it's really good at bypassing it.
Right.
Right. It's like the magic ticket. It's like you just can play the lottery your entire life and you might win. One day you might never need to work hard because you might be a bajillionaire, or you might just have spent all your money at the lottery and wasted your whole entire life with it. You know, like very similar. It's promising this bypassing. Yeah. That of course that sounds good. I can have all that and I don't have to go through this. Like sign me up.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I can write my affirmations and I can future script and all of those things and tools are great.
Print it out and put it on a board.
Yeah.
And then I can just become it.
Yeah.
Like this is amazing, right? And the thing is that does work.
It does work.
It does work, but it's temporary.
And it's only half of the puzzle.
And it's only half the puzzle and it's temporary because if it's built on rocky foundations, if it's built on, if the driver is fear, if the driver is lack, if the driver is, I've hated this and I hate this upbringing and I just want to prove everyone wrong, right? If the driver is not rooted in your whole self and love, it's going to crumble eventually. It just has to. It's building a skyscraper on quicksand. Yeah. And so that's often what happens too, is that people do that and it works. They get that quick hit, like that dopamine. They're like, oh my gosh, I can do it. And then it crumbles. And then they're like, wait, what happened? And then they can't do it the same way again. Yeah. No, you can't, because you have to actually be the vibration versus just becoming it for a short period of time. Yeah. And that happens through the healing.
Yeah. And it's so good. I love this conversation so much. And I hope this is like clicking for people too. Cause it's like, once you get this, and that's it, right? Is it like we say that, be in a higher vibration, and those teachings aren't wrong. No. But it's like, be up here, but I have holes all through here, right? That and when we actually fill the wound from the bottom up through releasing it and like filling ourselves up with the love and compassion and like self-trust becomes a byproduct of that. And then you naturally raise to that vibration because you are filling yourself. You live.
It is your natural state.
Yeah.
And that's actually what the goal is, right? The goal is that vibration is your natural state. Yeah. Versus the analogy that came through when you were just saying that is like when we're going out for girls' night or we're going out for a date. And so what do? You put your best makeup on and your best outfit and your best heels. And then you come home and you wash up and you wake up the next morning, you look like
ratchet.
Nothing like that, you know? Like nothing like that. Now the goal is to feel beautiful both. Yeah. Right? But like the goal is that you are beauty, and yet you don't need all of these things to feel beautiful, right? Like the manifestation practices is like you put the makeup on and you go out and you have a great time. Yeah. But then 99.9% of the time you feel and you look like you do at home. Right. And unfortunately, because we don't have self-love, until you've gone down that road, you feel gross. Yeah. I'm not going to post on Instagram if I'm not wearing makeup or I'm not looking in this way. So the goal of the vibration work is, you're right, it's not wrong. It's really good work. And when taken out of the context of healing, it does get tainted. And that's a lot of what's happened. Yep. I was just talking about this on my Instagram. I was like, a lot of these like modern day money teachings and modern day manifestation teachings, they were taken out of context. Yeah. And when you take a teaching out of context and then you latch on that this is the truth, that's why we have a lot of people right now that are kind of like, screw the self-help industry, is because they've tried it and it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because it got taken out of context. Not because it doesn't work.
That's so true. I want you to touch on that for a minute, like the money teachings and the way that you saw the distortion in that, and what you are now teaching and from this foundation. Yeah. How did it get distorted, and how do we bring that back?
It got distorted the way that anything else got distorted. Yeah. Right? The way that everything in the world gets distorted is that when we have a core teaching, just like manifestation, it's the same exact thing. And you have this core teaching, right? Money's an energy and you can attract it and get in this vibration and do this and whatever it is. But then we don't address the fact that you have trauma around money. The reality is that the majority of people who are doing like modern day money manifestation work, it's because it's coming from a place of lack, and it's coming from a place of scarcity, and it's coming from a place of fear, and it's coming from a place of financial disempowerment. Yeah. And you're like, well, when I attract $100,000 or when I make $10,000 a month, right? Whatever someone's putting on the pedestal, when I get there, then I'll feel powerful. Then I'll feel abundant. Then I'll feel whatever it is. But in all reality, again, it works temporarily, but if you have genuine trauma around money, which many of us do, because going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, security and safety are down there. It's so intertwined and intermingled with money. And so a lot of us grew up in households where either it was perceived scarcity and lack, or it was real scarcity and lack of being afraid that you're going to lose your home, parents divorcing, child support, needing to have student loans, not being able to supply your needs and or wants, right? A lot of people came from that place. And that is one hell of a driver. It's one hell of a driver. But if you don't address the core of the traumas and the core attachments and the core needs and the core, what's all of society puts on pedestals, we see it in Hollywood, we see it everywhere. If you don't address that, you don't actually heal within and come from a place of financial power, Band-Aid on balloon.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately what a lot of people have experienced. And it sucks because we do, as a whole entire world, not even an industry, not even society, it's like the whole world, money makes the world go round. I always say that it's like sex. It's everyone wants it and everyone, no one wants to talk about it. Like, it's
so
like
true.
Everyone wants it really well and really good, but nobody wants to talk about like their relationship with it. Like, it's just one of those things, but we need it. And it's really, really messy, is because it actually also ties into self-actualization. It ties into you being able to live your best life, right? If you're like, my best life is spa days and I fly private, and like, if that's really, truly your definition of best life, you need to make a lot of money. So a lot of our core needs and our core attachments as humans are directly tied up into money. And if we're not talking about it, and we're not bringing light to that, and we're not helping people detach from that, we're not helping people heal from their traumas and find safety and security within their body outside of money, why are we doing it?
Wow, I love all of this. And I feel like I could just have you back on the podcast so that we can just talk about money too, because it's so beautiful and it's so good. And I think there's two things that you said that I really want to touch on. And the first being that money's a part of self-actualization.
Right.
And it's so true. And I haven't heard it said in that way, because there's also this, what ends up happening is there becomes a pendulum swing. So, 100%. People are like, oh, I'm going to do all this money work and all these things. Yes. And then it doesn't work because it's taken out of context. Yeah. It lacks foundation, and it's being taught by somebody who's also coming from the frequency of lack. Like, it's just,
and needs you to pay them a lot of money so that they don't feel lack.
Right. Exactly. Yes. And so that I feel worthy and I feel good enough, but it's still the, the bullet wound and the Band-Aid. And then they swing the pendulum in the opposite direction, denounce the teachings that are actually true and are ancient, but that have been distorted. Yes. And then go into this, and we see this in some of the spiritual community. I wouldn't say the entrepreneurial spiritual community, but the spiritual community at large is very much like, no attachment to anything. I don't even need money. I don't want money. And it's a very disempowered place to be and to operate from, because going back to what we said at the beginning of the episode, we need money in the hands of good people doing good things. And that is how we will change the world. And I fully believe that as well. Yeah. And I love that you said that about the self-actualization, because it's actually true. And I think that we get to have more conversation around that.
Sure.
That like, we can't just be like, I'm not attached.
When we do that, people do that because we think, and this has been the reality. We have seen people that have made a lot of money do really, really horrible things in this world. Because money, the reality of this construct, this matrix that we all live in, is that money and power do go hand in hand. Yeah. That is the 3D world. We've seen it play out over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. A lot of people in the spiritual community want to be like, no, I'm not a part of this construct. I'm not a part of this matrix, right? Like, I'm not attaching to it. And it's like, but it's the reality we live in. That's like me being like, you know what? I don't eat food.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm not eating meat. I'm not harming vegetables. I'm not using up the water supply. No, my matrix is that I don't need food. Good luck. How long are you going to last?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Like, what are the longest fast right now? Like 48 hours. What do people do? 3-day fast?
I don't know.
After that, okay. Good luck.
I get hangry, so I've never done them.
Like, literally, I can't even make it 12.
Yeah. No one wants to be around me at that point.
No. Yeah. But like, truly, that's what it's like saying. Like, no, I'm out. I don't need it. I don't need love. I don't need a relationship. I don't need this. It's like, we're humans in the human experience.
Yeah.
The most spiritual thing that we can do is be really good humans and navigate this human experience very beautifully and do good work in this world. Right? So a lot of people, we do that other end of the pendulum because it's like, I've seen people who make really good money and they do horrible things. Yeah. And they're in their wounding and they mess people up, right? And they look at all the industries that are bad people doing bad things, but they have a ton of money. And so it's like, I don't want to be a part of that. It's a defense mechanism. I don't want to be a part of that. Because we really do, like, fill in the blank, anyone listening. See what comes up in your head first thing when you say, rich people, blank. Rich people are greedy. Rich people are bad. Rich people don't do good things in the world, right? Like, I grew up with those beliefs. I grew up with thinking that the people who had a lot of money did bad things to get that.
Selfish.
Right?
Yeah.
But really, truly, if we had people who were in their heart, aligned with God, source, universe, whatever feels aligned with anyone listening, doing work that actually help people, what would trafficking look like right now? What would the drug industry look like right now? Right? What would war look like right now? Like, what would these third world countries that, I met this woman who goes in and does work in third world countries and she was talking about how a lot of, I can't remember off the top of my head what country it was, but the parents actually willingly put their children into sex trafficking because they don't have any other options. So the children go in sometimes at the age of 7 and they get out at the age, they're used up, were the words, at the age of 14. Because they don't have any other choice. Right? We see the lens of trafficking through what we've seen and thank God for the light that is being shed on that industry. But there are so many other stories and there's families that are willingly doing it because they don't know any different and they've been through it too. So what happens if we actually had heart-centered humans that are multi-million billionaires? What would we do? Yeah. We would have the resources and the reach to be able to go in and teach these people skills. All of these different countries, I think it was Guatemala, I can't remember what country it was at the top of my head. They have amazing skills and tools that we could sell and bring them money.
Yeah.
Like we could go in with infrastructures and go in with different government systems if we had that money. Yeah. So when people are saying that, it's like, no, don't run away from that. Because if you're listening and you're a heart-centered human, if you had $1 million right now and you were done like spending it on the things that whatever you think that were going to be cool and then realize that they wouldn't, like what would you be doing in the world? I guarantee everyone would have some sort of nonprofit and some sort of charity that actually did good in the world. Yeah. And that's how we actually change this world. Like that's how we change the collective. It's a big job, but it only takes 11% of people to have systemic change. We see these things and we're like, oh my God, it's such a big job. Like I could never make a dent. 11% to make systemic change. That's not a lot.
Wow. Yeah. I just want to allow everything you said to just land because it is so important and big. And I so acknowledge you for the conversations that you're having and bringing in. And this is why I love you so much because I'm just right there with you. And as you're speaking, like the thing I'm thinking of is like, what if we not only did this with money and money in the hands of good people, but people that steward this knowledge, that teach this knowledge and have actually done their own work and are facilitating spaces from like the depth of their knowingness and their being and the way that would change, that would change not only our industry, but the ripple effect on the world. And because at the end of the day, the money teachings, the self-development teachings, the spiritual teachings, even, dare I say, religious teachings, spiritual teachings, right, are actually rooted in truth, in good, in benevolence, in ancient principles. I mean, the things that we're talking about, that we talk about on this podcast, that we talk about in this industry, have been talked about since the beginning of time.
Literally. Since
the beginning of time. And like nobody's reinventing it, but they are distorting it through their own wounding, right? But like these teachings are good and true and real and so needed and necessary. And we've known them as in humanity for all of time and we lost them. And I think we're in this age where we are bringing it back. But when the more light grows, the more darkness will be brought to the surface. And it's law. It's polarity. It's in order to be alchemized. And I just imagine, like, what if we had more people that were so rooted in the true mission and in true service and in really doing their own work. And it's so sad to me, but I also understand it, why people get so burned by the money teachings. They get so burned by, I went into these spaces and they weren't coherent, or they weren't, I didn't feel safe, or I tried these teachings and they didn't work for me.
Right.
It's like, oh, because it's a bunch of wounding teaching them, like, and it just keeps getting perpetuated and distorted. And it makes me so sad. And I'm not saying that I'm over here and fully healed either, but I do know the root and the place that I'm coming from. And I know the place that you come from. And it makes me so sad that people like, okay, never mind, I'm going to denounce all of these teachings that are actually like what will change the planet.
That's so true.
And I just want to bring that light to this conversation as well. As like, that's why bringing it back to like being so discerning in who you're following. But and it's just the last thing I'll say on this is, you and I talked about this, and I want to hear your perspective as we wrap up the podcast. Like, what's coming? For a while after what I went through, it's so purposeful, right? What happened in your life, what we saw in the coaching industry, what was illuminated for us individually, and the conversations we've had about it. And I, for a moment, wanted to also swing the pendulum in the opposite direction. Because when you get burned by something, even if your higher self knows, right, it's great. And even if you're like, I brought this to myself, but when you're human, everything happens for a reason, and and that's true. And my big S self knows, but man, that wounded inner child got burned in the fire because her wounding led her there in order to heal it. And I'm so grateful. And I even wanted to swing the pendulum in the opposite direction, right? And like, I don't want to be in this industry. I saw what I saw. I'm way too close up to way too much stuff here now. And I don't know if I want to do this. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to add to it. I got really scared. Like, I don't, what if my wounding is, I don't want to distort things, like, and not to say that we're always human, right? So we're never going to get it perfect. But like, I got so scared, like, I don't want to be that. So therefore, I'm not going to do this. And I even took a year off the podcast to really be like, do I even want to be in this space? And what I came to realize, which I know you feel the same, is that we need more people doing this work with good intentions, sitting in the seat of their truth, actually walking the path, actually in alignment, like really speaking from the depth of their own knowing, and also not pretending to have all the answers. And letting their humanness be seen, and letting their vulnerability be seen, and letting their heart lead. And what are we going to do? Because otherwise, the distortion wins. The distortion wins.
It's so true. And it's like this anywhere. We see it in the industry that we have been a part of for a very long time. This is our reality. This is the microcosm that we live in. But we could also say this about, my family is absolutely crazy, and screw my family, and I'm the black sheep, and I'm never going to Christmas again. Right? Like, I'm going to exile myself out of my family. But you were born into that family to change the bloodline. Right? Or a corporation. Right? Of like, oh, this boss and this ego, and this corporate's all about, or this corporation's all about ego, and they don't even do this, blah, blah, blah. And then you go into another one and you're like, same problem? Right? Like, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so it's like, what do we choose to do? Do we choose for the protector that is like one hell of a part, and like, thank you, homegirl, you've got me through a lot of stuff and a lot of trauma? Do we let her like, nope, I'm out. I'm gonna go into the barista industry and I'm gonna move to Costa Rica and just live off nothing because I don't need money, right? And it's like the whole thing, right? Or do we actually recognize that wherever any of us are at, if you look around you, whether it's the industry, whether it's whatever it is, a corporation, your family, whatever, your community, and you're like, get me out, you're welcome. You're probably the light that your soul has chosen you to be. And we talked about it earlier, like it is hard. It's the easiest thing in the world to be like, peace, I'm out. Right? Like it truly is. My husband and I were talking about this about a year and a half ago. We had a really rough patch in our marriage. And I was like, oh God, this would be so easy to just peace. Like this would be so easy. We have a home, whatever, we'll sell it. We have 2 dogs. We'll just split them 1 and 1. Like it would be so easy to just bounce out of this. Right. And I say, I'm like, wow, this is why like I believe, and this is my path in life is monogamy and one husband. And I know I'm in Austin, but that's what I choose. And like, I looked at him one day and I was like, it's so hard to choose us. Right now, where we're at in our relationship, I've never noticed that it's hard to choose us, but like we're here to choose us, right? And it's like that with anything. It's easy to run. Yeah. It's easy to be like, whatever, I'll just create my own path. I always do. It's another thing to stay and be like, great, I have to heal this. And it is my duty to be the light within whatever this is. Because the reality is I still stand by, and I went through the same thing where I'm out, I'm not even talking about energetics or money or business. Like I don't want anything or anyone in my, like ever again, like screw Instagram, burn it all to the ground, you know? And then I recognized the self-help industry really truly was created to be, in my opinion, one of the best industries in this world.
I agree.
Like, we have the ability to have something like this, like we have 2 microphones in front of us and you're a platform and Instagram to be able to shed light and to help people. Like we have the ability for somebody who is depressed or somebody who's lost or somebody who's confused to press play on something and for one person's voice to be the thing that changes the trajectory of that person's life. Like the fact that this industry was created is amazing. We can't abandon it. Is there darkness? Yes, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to escape it. We're never going to be able to.
Yeah.
But can we stand there and recognize that we were led into these industries with these voices and these experiences and these stories for a reason? And that's actually our duty, is to lead that. And then you see it from such a different light. Then you realize, good luck trying to escape it, because your soul's always going to bring you back to what your path is supposed to be.
Isn't that the truth?
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Oh, this is so beautiful and such a beautiful note to end on. And to wrap this whole podcast up in a bow, I guess what I would say is, when you stand in the face of adversity and darkness, can you be the light?
Yeah.
Yeah. And who do you choose to be?
Yeah. It's not easy to always choose the light.
No.
But that's the other thing too. To just one more on that is to then find your freaking people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
You're so my freaking people. The second we met, I was like, yes.
Hoping you'd say that.
Oh, you set me up real well.
But really, like, and we said this earlier before when we were downstairs, it's like, sometimes it is lonely.
Yeah.
It is lonely to be like, no, I'm standing for this, you know, but it's like, find the people that are with you and being that light that can support you.
Yeah.
And that's how things really start to change.
Oh, I love this. We'll have to bring you back on and talk about money and everything. I love your heart. I love who you be in the world and your integrity and our conversations. And I knew this was going to be a good one. So thank you for coming on. Where can everyone find you, connect with you?
I'm on Instagram. Find me there.
Okay,
Podcast
great.
coming, and I'm on Instagram.
Podcast coming, guys.
That's coming, and I'm on Instagram.
Great. Well, we will link everything in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the It's Fucking Spiritual podcast. I am so glad that you're here. And if this episode resonated with you, I invite you to share this with a friend that you feel needs to hear it. And if you are really feeling the love and support for this show, this podcast thrives off of your listens and your reviews. So I would love if you could leave us an honest review. We would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your questions, and it helps us get this podcast in the hands of more people and would mean so much to me to receive your support. So thank you.